guys doing today? Jason A. Kuhn here, giving you a Fight the Deception with Christian Perception news brief for March 24th, 2014. We got a lot of news today with a little time. We'll jump into it here at Infowars.com. Homeland Security exercise targets free Americans against social tyranny. Leaked Homeland Security documents obtained by Infowars reveals details of a joint DHS-FEMA national exercise set to take place this week. One of the components of which revolves around an effort to counter online dissent by a group called Free Americans Against Socialist Tyranny, which is disgruntled by an imposition of martial laws after an earthquake in Alaska. The document again underscores the federal government's obsession with characterizing libertarians and conservatives as some kind of extremist radical threat. The document in PDF form was leaked by an individual affiliated with Stuart Rhodes' Oath Keepers organization and passed on to Infowars. It is entitled National Exercise Program Capstone Exercise 2014 Scenario Ground Truth. The document is intended for, quote, U.S. Department of Homeland Security trusted agents only and is, quote, disseminated only on a need-to-know basis. Even the role players involved in the exercise itself are prohibited from seeing the files. The exercise is designed to evaluate readiness and preparation for a catastrophic incident, natural disaster, or major acts of terrorism. Some of the scenarios which will be in play during the exercise include a series of earthquakes, tsunamis, and a nuclear weapons accident. On page 125 of the document, a scenario is outlined whereby a group called itself Free Americans Against Socialist Tyranny responds to, quote, the U.S. Northern Command mission of defense support to civil authorities, or the imposition of martial law, by launching a protest campaign on social media and potentially engaging in cyber attacks. According to the scenario, the campaign is driven by suspicion that, quote, the government is responsible for the Alaska earthquake and a hacktivist manifesto. Move on here to Salon.com. U.S. deal with cartel let billions of dollars of drugs be smuggled. Wow. Under the remit of the war on drugs, millions of U.S. citizens have faced arrest and jail time for minor, nonviolent charges. All the while, it has been revealed the U.S. government has been enabling billions of dollars worth of drugs to flood into the country from Mexico because of shady deals with the notorious Sinaloa cartel. An investigation by El Universal, flagged by Business Insider, found that Sinaloa delivered to supply 80% of Chicago's street drugs have been working with the U.S. authorities since the year 2000 to provide information in return for immunity and undisturbed drug trafficking. Court documents obtained by El University show testimony from DEA and DOJ officials affirming the relationship. El Universal, citing court documents, reports that the DEA agents met with high-level Sinaloa officials more than 50 times since the year 2000. Quote, the DEA agents met with members of the cartel in Mexico to obtain information about their rivals and simultaneously build a network of informants who signed drug cooperation agreements subject to results to enable them to obtain future benefits, including cancellation of charges in the U.S., unquote, reports El Universal, which also interviewed more than 100 active and retired police officers as well as prisoners and experts. Wow, let's move on here to MyFoxDC.com. Cupid drone armed with taser gaining interest from military. Wow. A new drone armed with a taser is gaining a lot of interest from military and law enforcement agencies. It is called the Cupid drone and was developed at Chaotic Moon Studios. The newly developed Chaotic unmanned personal intercept drone can shoot 80,000 volts of electricity into a subject. Quote, if you imagine a SWAT raid and people running, why send officers when gun blazing down an alleyway where they can shoot and harm an innocent person or whatever when you could just have the drone follow them, unquote, said Chaotic Moon co-founder William Worley Hurley. So why send an officer with gun blazing down an alley where they can shoot and harm an innocent person, but let's just have a drone that can tase them with 80,000 volts do the job instead? Okay. Seems like they want to put the blame on a unmanned drone instead of a armed police officer. Let's move on here to Telegraph.com. Aborted babies incinerated to heat UK hospitals. The bodies of thousands of aborted and miscarried babies were incinerated as clinical waste, with some even used to heat hospitals, an investigation has found. 10 NHS trusts have admitted burning fetal remains alongside with rubbish, while 2 others used the bodies in waste-to-energy plants which generated power for heat. Last night, the Department of Health issued an instant ban on the practice, which Health Minister Dr. Dan Poulter branded, quote, totally unacceptable, unquote. At least 15,500 fetal remains have were incinerated by 27 NHS trusts over the last 2 years alone, Channel 4's dispatches discovered. The program, which will air tonight, found that parents who lose children in early pregnancy were often treated without compassion and were not consulted about what they wanted to happen to the remains. We'll move on here to Wired.com. CIA chief will spy on you through your dishwasher. More and more personal and household devices are connecting to the internet, from your television to your car navigation systems to your light switches. CIA Director David Petraeus cannot wait to spy on you through them. Earlier this month, Petraeus mused about the emergence of an Internet of Things, that is, wired devices, at a summit for In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital firm. Transformational is an overused word, but I do believe it properly applies to these technologies, Petraeus enthused, quote, particularly to their effect on clandestine tradecraft, unquote. All those new online devices are a treasure trove of data if you're a person of interest to the spy community. Once upon a time, spies had to place a bug in your chandelier to hear your conversation. With the rise of the smart home, you'd be sending tagged geolocated data that a spy agency can intercept in real time when you use the lighting app on your phone to adjust your living room's ambience. Quote, items of interest will be located, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled through technologies such as high-frequency radio identification, sensor networks, tiny embedded servers, and energy harvesters, all connected to the next-generation internet using abundant, low-cost, and high-power computing, unquote, Petraeus said. Quote, the latter now going to cloud computing and many areas greater and greater supercomputing and ultimately heading to quantum computing. Petraeus allowed that these household spy devices, quote, change our notions of secrecy and prompt a rethink of our, quote, notions of identity and secrecy, all of which is true if convenient for a CIA director. Let's move on here to FoxNews.com. NSA spying through Angry Birds app. Google Maps leaked documents reportedly reveal. The NSA and its British counterpart are tapping popular smartphone apps such as Angry Birds to peek into the tremendous amounts of personal data those bits of software collect, including age, location, sex, and even sexual preferences, according to new reports from the New York Times and The Guardian. Citing confidential documents provided by whistleblower Edward Snowden, the reports detail efforts to supplement data collection from cell phone carriers and smartphones by tapping into leaky apps themselves. Quote, some apps, the documents state, can share users' most sensitive information, such as sexual orientation, and one app recorded in the material even sends specific sexual preferences, such as whether or not the user may be a swinger, unquote, The Guardian stated. That information can come from a user profile, which may contain marital status. Options included single, married, divorced, swinger, and more, the report said. Both spy agencies showed a particular interest in Google Maps, which is accurate to within a few yards or better in some locations and would clearly pass along data about a phone's owner's whereabouts. Quote, it effectively means that anyone using Google Maps on a smartphone is working in support of a GCHQ system, unquote, reads a secret 2008 report from the NSA's sister spy agency, according to the New York Times. Wow, let's move on here to DailyMail.com. Is your TV spying on you? It sounds like science fiction, but many new TVs can watch you, telling advertisers your favorite shows or even filming you on the sofa, and there's no off switch. You are sitting in bed in your pajamas drinking a cup of cocoa. A loved one lies next to you watching late-night television. Pillow talk is exchanged. An alarm clock is set. Eventually the lights are turned out. Earlier you sat on the living room sofa eating supper before loading the dishwasher and heading upstairs. You have, in other words, just enjoyed a perfectly normal night in a perfectly normal home. The curtains are drawn, the central heating turned up, it's cozy, relaxing, and above all, completely private, or so you thought. Truth turns out to be quite the opposite, for on the other side of the world, people you didn't know existed are keeping a beady eye on your every move. These characters see what clothes you have been wearing and what food you've eaten. They heard every word you said and logged every TV show you watched. Some are criminals, others work for major corporations, and now they know your most intimate secrets. It may sound like a plot summary from a futuristic science fiction movie, but real-life versions of this Orwellian scenario are being played out every day in towns and cities across the globe, and in most cases, the victims have no idea. Wow, let's move on here to Slate.com. Last article for today. Next generation video games will see through walls. Today's video game industry is about immersions. Gamers want like real graphics, endorphin-inducing soundtracks, celebrity voiceovers, decision-based gameplay, destructible environments, and AI that adapts And while the Nintendo Wii and Xbox Kinect have allowed us to get off the couch and use our bodies as controllers, current technology obviously has its limits. But what if your whole house was a playable environment? That's the promise of a new technology out of MIT using radio waves. Researchers there have created an antenna system called WeTrack that can map the movements of a human in the next room. When I talked to Dina Katabi, co-director of MIT's Center for Wireless Networks and Mobile Computing, that she explained that the goal was to create a system designed for everyday people. WeTrack's radio signal is just 1% as strong as Wi-Fi and 0.1% of your smartphone's signal, yet it can track movements with surprising accuracy within the width of a human hand. Katibi and her team, which includes students Fidel Adib and Zach Kabalik, as well as fellow MIT professor Robert Miller, believe the technology could one day be layered into existing motion gaming technology to create an immersive experience. Quote, Xbox Kinect uses infrared, which does not traverse walls, so if you're ducking behind a couch, it will lose you because it doesn't see you anymore, Katabi said. Quote, with this technology, you'll one day be able to use the furniture and walls around you to avoid being shot. You're still part of the game. It can track you, unquote. That's all the articles I got for you guys today. I don't want to leave you without the New World Order quote of the day. Quote, the final act of Uruguay round, marking the conclusion of the most ambitious trade negotiation of our century, will give birth in Morocco to the World Trade Organization, the third pillar of the New World Order, along with the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund, unquote. It's part of a full-page advertisement by the government of Morocco in the New York Times, April of 1994. And of course, I don't want to leave you guys today without the proverb of the day. This is Proverbs 5:21, King James only. For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. That's all the news, articles, and quotes I got for you guys today. I'll leave you guys off with the song that I brought you in on. This is By Disciple, titled By God.